Hi, welcome back to the breadboard and part 4 out of 5 on how to make a 3D mask from your own skull. In parts 1 through 3 we looked at extracting the STL files from a CAT scan, doing some initial cleanup in Meshmixer and solidifying the models, and then in part 3 we used Blender to basically hollow out the inside of the skull using the face as a template. Now that we have this, we're able to go back into Meshmixer and do some more cleanup. Now, my daughter Jessica has done this part of the video, so I will hand over to her as she takes you through what she has done to clean up the model. And what you'll see is that she's actually filling out, strengthening and adjusting parts of the model, cutting away so that it will fit on your head more comfortably, and also in readiness for reapplying the face on the inside to make it more of a perfect fit. Anyway, without further ado, let me hand you over to Jessica and she will tell you what she's doing.
So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sculpt tool and I'm going to pick the draw, and if you want to do a lot, then you might want to pick this one, but I just picked that one to go relatively steady. I like having my size about... Adjust your size and your strength to be whatever you need it to be to keep up with. And then what you want to do is you want to start drawing out these areas where, yeah, there it kind of did this thing. So you can just shrink it back down. I just wanted to get rid of that nub. Look at it, different angles. I really don't like what I just did there. Fine. You can see how there's like the crevice there that didn't work. But sometimes you gotta... Yeah, there we go, that's better. Because you can get these areas that are sort of dimpled, and you don't want that because it doesn't combine. You also want to make sure you're not impacting the front. Look at that. Alright, let's try this again. Brushes, draw, surface. There, see? No impact. I just undid it. Oh, well, you know what I mean. So there's no impact, so that's what you want to do. You want to surface, draw it out. And in these parts you want to really get in there, so you're drawing out the whole thing and not just the you can see that that's sort of where the face hit the skull before. So you want to draw this out until when you look at it on the side or underneath, it bubbles. That way when you cut it out again, it'll properly cut it out. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill this area and this area out. So sharp little, I take the brushes and go shrink smooth, but sharp little galleys like this you probably want to smooth out, just like in areas like where your eyes will be. Just a little safety precaution. And you can make the size smaller and just deal with a very specific area if you need to. Like that little sharp bit right there. And if you want, you can build some of it back. Wow. Not what I want. I want that and that. Some of it back up just so that this will get cut out by the face. So if you're concerned that you took out too much, you can do that, and you can, that's right, shrink smooth. Dull down the strength and just sort of, yeah. And then you know it'll hit the bridge. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build in these areas. So I want a relatively small brush and I want the draw. And I like to work from like down here and slightly to the back so that I can build out and not interfere too much with what it's supposed to look like. So you want to be careful of is you don't want this. You don't want that, because then trying to bridge that back, well, it's working now, but sometimes you can have a lot of issues trying to bridge that back. Also, do be aware, as you see there, when that happens, you don't want that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to fill in these gaps. I've done so here, and you can see where it's kind of lumpy, and I've just sort of smoothed it out with a bit of this. Maybe a bit smaller. But just sort of smooth that out. I kept this under cheekbone area here. Actually, you don't want to lose too much of your detail, so don't worry too much about it. And I've built up the back here so that the cheek will become indented in here. So the cheek should cut out some of this. So to do this, when I've thickened it, you want to definitely want to thicken it on the inside. And just be careful not to do it too much on the outside. If you are, make it smaller. Sort of do that. You're better off doing it smaller and getting it lumpy. And then smoothing it out with that. Than you are making it too big and affecting the outside. See? See? Much better. So, to draw it out, you're going to take this and you're going to take it about size. Yeah, about that size. And I like to do it from the bottom-ish back-ish. You see I've got some nubs in there. Those will be cut out. So I'm not too concerned. And I take it and I... Just checking. You might want a bit stronger. A tiny bit larger. But I'm just sort of with a relatively small so that you can make sure that you're to make sure that you don't affect the, like you can shape the outside the exact way you want it to. Start with a small one, work on the exterior, and then build it thicker from the inside. Like you saw me do with the other one. Be aware that building up can work in strange ways, so you want to be careful about these tiny little areas, and they're a little strange because you can see how that can apparently happen. So make sure you're definitely on draw, surface, You may want to switch to volume for that sort of thing. That might help. Let's find out. Yeah, because that'll just make that thicker in general. And yeah, it'll fit the outside, which is not usually what we want, but what it'll do is it'll allow that to be built thick enough for us to work with. So the next thing we're going to do is these areas. Now you can't really build them up from the inside for the very sole reason that it's just going to get cut out again. But what you can do is you can build it up just a bit from the outside. Now, you might be concerned that this will change the look of the skull, but really all it does is round things off a little more. So you start with just thickening up the edges. And yeah, it kind of reshapes it. It kind of also just kind of smooths it, but not so much that it looks weird or not like the original skull. And you just thicken that up, drag it along the edges. And then you'll fill in, smooth it out here. And it's always good to go a little bit too big, then a little bit too small, because you can just, yeah, see I'm starting to get some lumpy areas where I turn. Because it draws there a little bit too much. So then you just bamf, shadance, and smooth that out a little. What you get is just a little bit more thickness, and you can build it up however much you think your particular shape needs. But I'll do that and we'll come back to it. This part here you can actually build up a bit on the inside and not worry about losing it. That way you keep the exterior version of it, because this doesn't actually sit against your cheek. But you may want to build it up just to make it good and nice and stronger. So you can do that by building it up a bit on the outside if you want. Keep the general, the biggest thing is keep the basic shape. So, you know, this has this little denty bit there, and this is lower than this. So because I've built this up quite a bit, I'll build this up a little bit. And of course, some good old smoothing out of little edges like that. And you can see I've sort of built it up on the inside. Just, ooh, everything's catching up with me. Make sure to save. Now, you can see where the ear is in here, and all this is here. That's fine. If you can even build this up a little bit, because it'll cut it out. All that'll get cut out again. So building it up just gives it lets it cut smooth again. But you can see from out here, you've got this ear bit. And that's where the ear has sort of come through. So you don't want, basically you don't want any of this stuff, because this is where the ear needs to be. So if we look at this, this is the ear coming in here. So we really want to cut this out. And hopefully this won't stab too much into where the ear is, and you just kind of gotta hope on that one. So we're gonna cut this out now. So here I've selected all of this area, ignoring those little gaps over there. Selected all of that as what I wanted to delete. But when I try and do that, it turned red and it won't do it because I've basically what's happened is I've selected too much. So what I do is accept, clear selection, and we're going to just try that again. So the idea is that I want to get rid of this stuff. So to start, let's just get rid of this little blip here. Ugh, I've done it again. It's sometimes hard to just get a section and not accidentally get what's behind it when there's like holes like this. So I want to get rid of like this little bipty whip. Yeah, great English. Let's see, edit, erase symbol. So what that'll do is this will do this. And for this option, that's fine. So we have smooth MVC. The other options are smooth rematch, which makes it really flat, which we don't really want right now. We want it to sort of keep somewhat of a smoothness. And then you can refine it, which creates different amounts of mesh. For now, we probably want to keep the mesh pretty high. You can always lower it later, but since we're working on this as a general, it's a good idea to keep it high at the beginning and lower later. So then you clear selection just so you get a nice clean start. We're gonna try and just take out all this section. So the idea is that it really needs to be not taking up, like not cutting the ear. So we want to kind of go around the ear to start. So all of this needs to go. It only needs to really go in a little bit here because that'll be where it'll sit on the head. Is this will just sort of curve under where the earlobe is. I'm gonna get a little bit ambitious and try and take this section off too. Just because it's not too complicated anymore because I took off the strangely shaped bit, which is usually what makes it not work. But I'm just gonna go ahead and do this and then... Okay, so I selected all that and let's see if that'll work. Nope, replace a region of the mess. It doesn't want to because I have, again, probably because this section right there is too complicated. So next I'm going to, oh, and apparently that worked for 2 seconds flat and then didn't. Alright, well I'm just going to try and remove this section. Just this section. Because I think this is what's really messing up the deleting part. Let's see if this works. Okay, that's definitely, this right here is the issue. So we might have to work at it little tiny bit by tiny bit. And I suspect it might be because of this, where it has a strange hole there. I don't know, maybe it's just way too complicated right there. The other option is build it up and then delete it. That might help. Which, if I can't get this to work this way, I will likely do. Right, okay. So, accept. I don't even care about this part being as version of anything. So here you can see I've done the fill and edit based on where that stuff was. But I need to minimize that because that's really insane. So we want to take down the scale because we don't want all that. And we want to kind of reduce the bulge a little. Maybe up the scale. Okay. Whoop, no, we don't want all that. So obviously there's some issues right there where it's pushing back through. So you want the bulge or the scale. I forget which one. No, scale can be small. Okay, so scale small. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do that and then we can build that back up again and smooth it out. So, you know, you got that. You can go back in here, take your sculpting tool, pull this out a bit. Just pull out a bit, just a smooth sort of area it out. Definitely not too much because you don't want to go back into where the ear's gonna sit. And then you're gonna smooth. You're gonna shrink and smooth. Definitely, like that's the bigger one because you don't. This is kind of the shape I want because I kind of want this to fit over the ear. I might reduce it some more just in case with just some more shrinkage just to make sure that the ear will for sure fit through there. You don't wanna hurt your ear. That's for absolutely sure. And then we're gonna repeat this on the other side. I'm trying to keep as much of the skull as I can without making it ridiculous. So this part here is probably gonna get trimmed. Like just trimmed enough to be a nice even across the back sort of thing. So I'm going to trim this now. And it's basically it's supposed to look about like that. So this should fit over the ear. Now I'm going to do this side. Alright, talk to you later. So I've done the same to the other side. Now I'm just sort of using a bit of a bigger brush and shrinking and smoothing a lot of this back edge. And you can kind of see that the two shapes are roughly the same, and now it's just basically forming the back aesthetically, which I like to leave it a little rough, like not a perfect line here, because it would take away from the skull, in my opinion, were I to actually reduce it to a nice, pretty straight line. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to really, with this cranked up, I'm actually going to take out and shrink and smooth a lot of the back inside, and probably make this nice and big just to make it fast. But why? Because we have hair and stuff, right? So I'm not going to touch the forehead part because that part really needs to fit to the face. But otherwise, this whole back area can kind of be shrunk a little. Just take a little off it. You can kind of see the thickness here. So you want to be careful not to make it too thin, but give it a good once over. And I think I'm at I smoothed the back out a little there. So I probably want to not do that quite as much. So basically just keep this here. You don't want to do this because that's what'll transfer over to this side. So once again, keep the full circle above the line and you should be fine. So you can kind of see there's still like, I could probably take a little bit more off of here and probably a little bit more off of this side and probably a good section in here. Of course, it's hard to know the thickness before you actually get to 3D print it, but you kind of just gotta guess that. And I know from the miniature 3D print that this section gets pretty thick, so you can take a reasonable amount out of the back of this. But yeah, so after that we've in short, what we've done is we've filled in these areas. We've built this up a bit more, which I'm probably going to build this section right here a tiny bit more than that. We've smoothed out most of the cut lines that are necessary, as I'm nitpicking now. We've taken out a bit of the back, and we've built up the inside of the front so that all of this stuff will be recut out of the forehead and will therefore allow for the mask to sit properly to the face. And that's about all you need to know about making it and cleaning it up. The last thing you want to do is you want to go to analysis and you want to go to inspector, and yep, sometimes there's just these little bits, and just do auto repair all. Afterwards you might make solid and do the rest of it, but that's part of it, the other side of the video. Thanks for watching.